how, how do you get the presentation, right?
Mhm.
So this week is like, assuming I get the listing, now what? How do I actually work through that process? Now, this is not a transaction checklist. On the team, we do provide those. This is not me saying, hey, you gotta schedule photos, and no, it's more like, how do you actually interact like dynamically with that seller to make sure they have a good experience, and you also have your stuff together. So working with sellers in today's market. So I'm gonna talk over these talking points, but I'm also gonna go off on tangents. You guys are welcome to ask questions. Best practices of meeting with the new seller. So number one, expectations. So using our team's listing presentation will give you a lot of tools to set expectations for pricing a home and our marketing process. That's another thing. Dorian would obviously join the team. We actually built already your listing presentation and your buyer presentation. So, and it's like dialed in. So if you use it, it works. But the way I built it with Ritz is to make sure that it covers everything. Like it helps you walk through pricing objections and negotiation with your seller to make sure the house is priced right. It walks you through our marketing process to the nitty gritty. And honestly, I've built it so you could basically just read it to them and it gets the point across. So even if you don't really know what you're saying or doing, you could literally just do what I'm doing with you right now, right?
Cool.
So be sure to talk about the market currently. So again, these expectations of the seller, you always want to talk about the current market. So rates, days on market, price reductions in their area, and what's happening in their price point neighborhood area with the houses that are selling. This is both preliminary, meaning you come to the listing presentation with this information, but also when you're actively marketing their home, you want to keep them updated on these things because, like for example, rates yesterday went up 0.5%, right? Well, I have a listing in Pleasant Grove that we were already a little nervous on where we priced it because we priced it just a titch low compared to other houses in the area, but also still competitive compared to comparables. And then rates went up 0.5%. And so now we're going, okay, this was our original plan, but 0.5% rate increase is, a buyer loses basically 5% of their buying power. So that 375 condo is now equivalent of like a 395 condo from a payment perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, you want to let them know what's happening in their area. We're talking about best practices and working with the seller. So last week we talked about if you get a listing or how to get a listing presentation or how to do a listing presentation and get a listing. This is once you have it, right? What do you do next? So number one, expectations. Again, keep them updated on pretty much everything, right? Rates, days on market, all that stuff in their area. I'm just kind of filling you in, Joel. So B, dialing in the seller's preferred timeline to list and also whether they want or have to buy is necessary. That's an easy thing in general. Like if you are going into a listing presentation, it's always good to talk to the seller and identify if they're also a buyer, because that's going to change the whole dynamic of the transaction. But it's also good to know because you obviously want to pick up a second deal, and believe it or not, there's been times when a seller will buy with someone and list with somebody else. They might list with Homey and buy with you. So it's always good to talk through that with them ahead of time. And then you also want to know what ducks you have to get in a row before starting the process. You can help them plan and succeed with great service along the way. So what are their expectations? When do they want their house on the market? When can we have cleaners come in? Or what, in your guys' case, you don't pay for cleaners like I do, just because obviously you're getting started. So you would ask the seller when, here's a couple of cleaning recommendations. Do you want help scheduling those? When are you going to be able to get those done? That kind of stuff. So you want to kind of almost ahead of time map out their expectations for just the general process, and then also identify what their wants and needs are and what's going to take to get their house on the market. I've got one in Provo that I've had the listing now for 2.5 months. And it's not on the market because I've had to hire a kid to go in and to rip out, his contaminated carpets. It's like a crack house, and hire someone else to go in and deep clean it 3 times already and all these different things, right? So that's a way different process than, hey, I want to sell my house next week. Okay, cool. Let me schedule photos and boom, we're done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A dialed in CMA. So that's number 2. Get a second opinion every time on your CMA. Again, a CMA is a comparative market analysis. Basically, when you see CMA, just think of my opinion on the value of a house, right? When you're doing a CMA, you're basically saying, this is what I think your house is worth or what it would sell for in today's market. It's a market analysis, right? Even if you are an expert, another agent's perspective not only gives you ammo to use for setting expectations. So I'll give you a real life example here. I am 3.5 years into this or more. I can't even tell you how many CMAs that I've listed, don't even know how many houses. And I still almost 9 times out of 10 will get a second opinion on a CMA. Not even so much because I'm not confident I know how to price a house. There are times that I'm like, man, I have no idea. This is a wacky ass house, right? But because I want to go into the appointment, letting the seller know, hey, not only is this my opinion, but I was able to get 1 or 2 other agents in my office, or the top office in Utah, to also chime in. What does that take away their need to do?
go to other agents
Right.
and see what they think.
Exactly, because you're saying, oh, they're like, oh, we think we're gonna interview someone else. Okay, was it something marketing related that I was missing? Or are you concerned with the way I was thinking we would price your house? You can immediately use that as a way to draw out objections. Well, I'm concerned about the pricing. Okay, completely understand. Like I mentioned earlier, though, this is, and you're not ever telling a seller, this is where you list your house. You're just bringing the info. They ultimately decide no matter what. So, but that's another thing where you say, hey, this is not only my opinion, but I was able to get another agent in my office, named Becca. She sells 60 houses a year. And this other agent who sells 30 or 40. And they were both thinking the same thing. Here's my number. Let's combine those as an average. What do you think? Does that make sense? Versus
Yeah.
here's where you price your house. You're just the messenger, right? So again, this can help them not feel the need to get a second opinion because you already did, right? You're coming prepared. Number 3, printed documents. So on our team, we do a lot of stuff with DocuSign. That's just the way the world works now. But I can't tell you with confidence that I'd recommend that you don't print the documents out just in case and bring them with you, because that's always an objection. A seller could be like, yeah, I'm ready to work with you. Send me the DocuSign. And guess what? They never sign it. And in the meantime, they say, oh, we're going to actually wait a week, maybe talk to a few other agents. No, you want to close it on the spot. Quicker your sign still deliver, the better. Also for your time, because then you can get rolling. I had a seller I met with on 3 occasions. So I met with them in 2020, 2021, and then again this year. And they ended up listing with somebody else after they had already verbally told me every single appointment, we're going to list with you. We're just not ready quite yet. Not ready quite yet. And they ended up listing with someone who's a neighborhood expert, and their house sat on the market for over 70 days and price dropped $200,000. So I'm like, you get what you pay for, right? Because I if they would have worked with me in March, I would have got them 1.1. And guess what? They're at 989 still sitting. So that's just a whole nother thing. You gotta be more aggressive, not pressure, but in hindsight, I should have hammered them. I should have been like, no, let's do this. Like, you're wasting time. You're wasting my time because I helped them hire contractors, like all this stuff. So it's always good to just get a commitment because people will waste your time and string you along.
Yeah.
Net sheets and stats. So a net sheet is from the title company. This actually gives your seller a real-time quote on what their take home is. So after all closing costs, commissions, everything, it will tell them, hey, if we sell your house for $575, you pay after mortgage of $299, you're walking away with $175,000 after paying me and all, state and tax related or whatever. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I hesitate to a point with this. If you're going to do a net sheet for your seller, you better be sure it's dialed in, because if you misquote them, it's on you, right? So that's why I say optional. I do it because I know how to run one. So I never get worried. I'm like, yeah, I just quote it on the spot. I'll quote you in right now if you want me to, right? But as a newer agent, don't overwhelm yourself, and also don't do anything that's going to potentially put you in jeopardy where you're going to have to over promise and under deliver. Like, you'd rather just be sharp on that. So that's a tool you can use. And then stats. So as a new agent, when I first started, I was freshly 20 and had no real estate experience, and I was going and competing with other people. So my first 2 listings were for sell by owners, and on both, they had both interviewed other agents. And so I was going in like, yeah, I have no track record. I've never sold a house before, but you should hire me. And I got both. Here's why. I learned quickly that people like to be shown, not told. And so what I would do is I would take stats. I would say, hey, here's my brokerage list to sales price versus home versus whatever other office they're considering. And every time we're better, every single time. So and I'll show you, but if you look at the stats, I'll show you how to pull them if you ever want me to, or make a video about it or something. But basically, in fact, it's on my computer. I'll just explain it to you. It gives you, I do a 12-month trend. So from last year to now, last September to now, and I'll say, what's our average list to sold price? So I'll add them all together, divide it by 12 or 13, however months there are, and it'll give me a number. Normally it's like 103, 104%. Compared to homey, they're usually like 100 to 101. What is that difference between 101 and 104? 3%, right? So what does that actually tell you? If they're selling houses for 3% less than we are they actually cheaper? How much is 3% in a seller's pocket?
A lot.
Right. So technically you're the cheapest option. So whenever they would try to negotiate with my commission or try to say that this other company is going to make them more money, I would just show them, no, that's actually statistically not true. Like, literally, you tell me, numbers don't lie. Who's better? I would get the listing almost every time. So that's something I recommend, because you don't have a track record, but we do. And so whenever someone tries to call you like, well, you're a new agent, you're young, you're whatever. No, it doesn't matter, because I'm working with the best. And I also have support system and everything else behind me to make sure I get this done. Does that make sense? So number 5, decision makers, making sure all decision makers are present, because if you go in a listing presentation and the husband's not there, guess what the wife's going to say? Well, let me talk to my husband, or vice versa. Make sure they're both in the room. That's another mistake I've made multiple times, where The husband was on board. He loved me. The wife didn't because she never met me. I presented the husband, sold him, and then he went and told his wife, hey, I met this kid. He's ready to sell our house. He's going to charge us 6%. 6%? No way. Yeah, I'm going to hire a homie. Oh, great. Well, I just lost that one because she didn't have the time to actually hear me out or see my value. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So any questions with those?
No.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. Next,
I have a couple of-
go ahead.
Sorry, I have like
Oh, yeah.
2 questions. So you know how you said to like you should tell them about like the rates and everything. Do you
Yeah.
keep in contact with your mortgager every week or like get an update from them? Like how do you?
I would. You can just tell them like, hey, could you just update me like once a week via email or text, just like what rates are doing, like what you're seeing. You can always Google it too, just look up conventional rates today or FHA rates today. But it's a good practice for
Okay.
you. Oh, you're good. Go ahead.
Oh no, keep going. You're good.
I was gonna say, it's a good practice for you in general, whether you have a listing or not, just because then you know. So when you're out in conversations with people, you can drop little nuggets of value for them.
All right.
But yeah, that helps.
Yeah, perfect. And then also with the CMA, is there like a training or a video or something that teaches us how to do that?
Yeah, so I put together a document that has like a step-by-step guide, and then I've also, with Ritz, we've recorded a couple of these team meetings and different things where I've gone over it. So on YouTube, you should be able to find it, and then here in the next, I don't know, 3-4 weeks, we'll be going through it again as a group. So how we do these team meetings is I've got 5 training sessions, and I just repeat them. Because usually by the time I circle back to one, you've probably forgotten, or maybe there's other nuggets we can talk about, or sometimes I go off script and I just openly talk about stuff, right? But yeah, we'll do a CMA workshop probably here in 3 weeks, 4 weeks or so. But in the meantime, if you want help, come grab me. I'll give you that document, and then I'll, send you a video on kind of what's what. So does that work?
Yeah, that works great.
Awesome. If any other questions come up, feel free to interrupt. Don't feel bad about asking questions. So other best practices working with a seller. So number 1, reviewing offers. Be sure to call the lender. So this is, okay, I got the house in the market. We got, an offer or offers on the home. Now what? So you're going to call the lender on any offer you received to verify the buyer actually has the means to purchase the home, and if the lender seems competent enough to get the deal done. If you call the lender and you're like, hey, and there's pretty sure we have a list on Trello, which is like our digital library of questions for the lender. If not, I can put something together. But I usually call and say, hey, the Johnson family made an offer on my listing. I'm just kind of calling to check in on their situation. Have you verified income, assets, employment, all that stuff? If they're saying no to any of those things, then I'm like, yeah, well, they're technically not ready to go, because if you don't even know if they stated to make 100K a year, but you didn't verify that, and they make 50, guess what? You just wasted 2 weeks of my seller's time, right? So you want to be diligent about that stuff. So not only does the lender seem competent, like, did they do their job? Were they thorough? But also, does the buyer actually qualify for that amount? Do they have the means to make it happen? And also, what's the lender's confidence on that file? So is there any potential hurdles you see? Right, asking those questions helps you get out in front, and then also it makes you look like a rock star to your seller, because you're like, hey, here's this offer, it's full price or whatever. We got this. Here's information I have about the buyer. Lender's ready to go. What do you think? And then you're already that much further ahead. Read carefully and make sure the team reviews it as well to catch any errors or risky terms so we can address them. So don't play one-man band right now. You got me for a reason, as well as our transaction team. So make sure that you don't make assumptions, because they will kill you. There's plenty of times students have got themselves in pickles we got to work our way out of because they didn't take the time to ask for help, or they thought they knew and they really had no idea. So that's why we're here, right? And honestly, that's how you get the value out of the team, is by using it, right? If you just go off and do your own thing, there's no point of us being here. But if you stay engaged with us, then you'll learn so quickly. Number 2, group chat. So set up a group chat with any and all decision makers, as well as a transaction coordinator. This makes everything substantially easier to communicate and stay on the same page with. So with Transcend Transactions, obviously they help out with your guys' deals. Putting Michelle or whoever your assigned person is in a group chat would be super helpful, because then you cut out the middleman. So then Michelle's not texting you saying, hey, can you ask your client to sign this? She just asks, hey, can you sign this? And then I don't have to even worry about it, right? I'm totally detached. It also makes you look like a pro, because you're like, hey, I'm going to throw you in a group chat with my assistant. Wow, you're like, you just started. How the hell do you have an assistant already? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anticipation. So getting familiar with the process before you go through it is crucial. Learn to anticipate and get out in front of your client's needs. It's key. I typed that wrong. We need to change that. Giving them a roadmap and insight on what to expect will make you look solid. So anticipation is one of the best skills in business, because it helps you. It's not assumption. Anticipation is just what could potentially happen and how do I make sure I'm prepared? Or in this case, with the seller's needs, how do I answer a question before they ask it? How do I make sure my process is so buttoned up and thorough that before they even say, hey, so when are you gonna come do photos? When are you gonna put the sign up? You've already said, hey, you've mapped that out, right? That's gonna make them, the more you can help your clients just kick their feet up and know you're taking care of it, the more you're gonna get paid and the better the experience is gonna be, because then you're the one driving it. You're not stuck relying on them working it out, or, I don't know how to explain it. Like, they're not in your way. They're not tripping you up. That makes sense. Number 4, checklist every time. So use the team provided checklist and loop Jen. So Jen is no longer with the team. So it'll be Michelle and every single time. They are your biggest assets when working through a seller transaction. So again, that's why we're here. The transaction team, I kind of mentioned this to Joel and whoever else is downstairs yesterday, Leilani and Scott, pretty sure he's there. With the transaction team, they're there when you have questions on whether a document is written properly or you don't know how to fill something out, you go to them. I'm here when you have questions for negotiation. So just to separate the two. So normally if you're writing an offer, if it's something like, hey, Riley, I'm just curious, what do you think I should do in this situation to win for my client or to negotiate a better deal? That's what you ask me. If it's like, hey, where do I put this on the rep sheet? That's transaction. Does that make sense? Just making sure we distinguish the two. That also helps me free up my time so that I'm not swamped with reading over contracts all day, and also more able to help you guys as well. Oh, wrong computer. Cool. Any questions on that? Helpful?
You're good.
Leilani?
I think I'm good.
If anything comes up, let me know. Lastly, how to handle basic hurdles. So these are very specific to our market right now. No showings or offers 10 to 14 days in. I gotta change that typo. Anyways, normally if you have very little showings and no offers 10 to 14 days in, this is an indicator you are overpriced by at least 3 to 5%. Best practice is to drop the price and wait another 10 days to see what comes up. Also in this market, multiple offers are becoming less common. In fact, I don't even know that they're happening. Maybe on 1 out of every 100 listings right now. Be sure to explain our market and the realities before listing. So don't set the expectation that I'm going to sell your house in 5 days with 10 offers. No, it's probably going to take us 30 to 40 days. You might get one, right? Most sellers have their mindset stuck in the market from 6 to 8 months ago. Sellers are the last people to find out about the current market because buyers feel it right up front because they're the ones actively engaging with the market. Well, it's agents, then buyers, then sellers. So you really have to work hard to set their expectations. Buyers don't care. They're just there to, they're pretty easy. Honestly, buyers are the easiest thing. Sellers, not that they're not easy, but working with the buyer doesn't really require skill. You can open doors and push papers and get it done. With a seller, it does take a skill set because you're actually learning how to market a home, manage expectations, negotiate. But sellers are also the best use of your time because I have 4 houses on the market right now. I'm not showing shiz for houses, but guess what? Those are all going to close in the next, I don't know, 30 to 45 days and boom, boom, boom. And I didn't have to, I mean, one of them I've never even seen in my life. It's in Hurricane, like I've never even walked through the house. So that's the best use of your time for sure. That doesn't mean don't work with buyers. But anyways, we'll keep moving. Buyers ask for repairs and credits. So in the shifting market, expect a buyer to push for something and prep your sellers to expect that as well. So your seller says, yeah, I'm selling my house as is. Say, hey, even if you say that, I have a house right now in Sandy. Comps back in like June were 530 to 550. We priced ours at 509 and did a little bit of updating, but we knew that there was like old plumbing and roof and all this stuff. Well, what ended up happening is we had 2 buyers go under contract, both did an inspection. The deal fell apart because there was like crazy amount of issues. We're selling it now for 455 cash. I didn't want to do that. That sounds like that hurts my stomach. I'm like, man, there goes my track record of selling everything for list or above, But in this case, he's like, I want to sell it as is. But guess what? When you find out the foundation screwed, the roof's bad, all the plumbing needs replaced, the showers don't even turn on, the electrical's bad, needs a roof. I mean, that's damn near a full remodel. That's a house you could go flip, right? So what do you expect? So that was tough because I had to re-prep his expectations. At first, it's like, hey, where we've priced it, we should be able to sell it as is. First 3 days, we got a full asking price offer, and it was great. Guess what? The buyer found all this stuff and was like, yeah, don't know if I'm ready to put 50 grand into this house. Sorry, right? Well, that changes our conversation pretty drastically. So when the buyer asks for repairs or cash to help with the repairs, it's best practice to present them to the seller and look into quotes for an accurate range of what cost would or should be. Also use your best judgment to see what feels nitpicky versus necessary. So is it a leaky sink, which is like, hey, get over it? Or is it like, man, the sewer needs replaced? Probably a big deal, right? Especially to a buyer who's already strapped for cash trying to buy a house in this market. Appraisal comes in low. This is rare, but it does happen. And with prices dropping could start happening more. if and when an appraisal comes in low, you have three options in any transaction. You can either lower the price, the buyer can cover the difference, or the buyer can cancel, right? Those are your three options. You could also contest it. There's option 4, as an agent, you can kind of barter with the appraiser and see if they'll up the value, which I've done. I had one that came in like $60,000 low, we got it done. So to work through this, you have to have good comps on hand to contest a low appraisal for your seller and get another agent to look at it to see if they can justify any of their comps. So when this happens in a transaction, it's probably best that both agents, the buyer and the seller's agent, work together to overcome this hurdle. And that's, if you're on the seller side and the buyer's agent goes, hey, sucks for you guys, like, we're not going to pay the appraisal value. You say, hey, sucks for you because my seller's not going to lower their price. Maybe they will. That's where you talk to them first. Assuming they won't, you say, now you get to help me figure this out. So you go pull comps, I'll go pull comps again. Let's work with the appraiser to see if we can meet in the middle somewhere. Because my seller's not going to drop the price 100K for your buyer. So either cancel or let's work this out, right? Makes sense? Any questions there? Hopefully it covers a good amount of everything. Leilani, any questions?
I'm good.
Awesome. Cool. Something we do occasionally, just when I'm feeling like it, we'll do a mindset training. I call it the checkup from the neck up. So we're going to watch this quick video. It's going to take about, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. And honestly, this is probably one of my favorite, or it's 20 minutes. Let's see. This is one of my,
I love that.
yeah, he's awesome. It's one of my favorite videos. Oh, the audio in here is broken. I just realized. Hold on. I'll try it. Hopefully it doesn't come across too bad.
I can try.
Give me a second. Rich, you got any ideas? Or actually, can you make me host? And I'll just play it off my laptop.
Yep. Let's see.
All good? Still recording?
Yep.
Cool.
I'm constantly obsessed with writing the next chapter of my life, not reading the previous ones. The happiest and most fulfilled people don't read the past chapters of their life. Here's the truth. Nobody cares. No one cares if you had a failure. No one cares if you've had a setback. No one cares if you had a victory. And that old character you keep playing is the very thing that will prevent you from becoming this new version of you. You're repeating this story to yourself, simultaneously trying to create a new identity. You can't take that old story into the new identity. Welcome back to Max Out, everybody. I'm Ed Milet.
Hey, Leilani, can you hear the video? Or could you?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Cool. Pull out your phone for me, and I want everybody to give me 3 takeaways when the video is over. I wrote down the last time I watched this a page worth of notes, so you better have 3 takeaways. But this video again is on identity, so we'll watch this and we'll chat about it.
And today I'm extremely excited to share these thoughts with you because I think what we're going to cover today may be the single most important thing that will lead to you reaching the ultimate version of yourself, your optimal results, your max out level of play, or not ever getting there. And so it's that important to me. You know, people ask me often, what were some of the decisions and choices and areas I focused on that made the biggest difference for me in my life? And today's topic is the thing that I would probably give you the gift of first. And that is the power of your identity. See, I believe the most powerful force in the world is to be consistent with the thoughts, ideas, concepts, and beliefs you hold to be true about yourself. And that is what identity is. Identity is the governor on every single area of your life. It literally sets the temperature for all of the conditions of your life. Shakespeare has this incredible quote that says, we know what we are, but not what we may be. And the who you may be is going to be dictated by your ability to alter your identity. because you are going to always be consistent with what you believe you're worth and what you believe you deserve, or what is your identity. Your identity, the best analogy I could give you is like a thermostat sitting on the wall of your life. It sets the entire temperature for the conditions of your life in multiple areas. And so most people think their life is dictated by external circumstances. They spend their entire life trying to control what is outside of them. You've all heard the great saying that people in 12-step programs talk about learning to control the things they can and letting go of the things that they can't control. And the fact of the matter is you cannot always control the external factors that are impacting you in your life. The good news is it's the external things in your life that do not dictate the direction or the ultimate destination of your life. That is a fallacy. Listen to me when I tell you this. External circumstances do not dictate the ultimate destination of your life. It's an internal game. You and your faith, your God, are what will control the direction of your life, not the external things that are impacting you all the time. And this identity is that internal thermostat. It sets the temperature, just like a thermostat sitting on the wall, of the conditions of your entire life. Let me give an example of how the thermostat of our lives works. The best analogy I could give you is exactly how one works in the room I'm sitting in. It sets the temperature of the room. And so the external conditions don't impact the internal temperature of this room because that thermostat regulates the condition of the room. So if we open the door and the windows in this room and cold air blew in here, the thermostat would kick on, wouldn't it, and heat the room back up to 75 degrees. So no matter what hit it, it regulates the temperature of the room. The reverse is also true. If a bunch of hot air blew in the room, if we open the doors and the windows, the thermostat would cool the room back down and regulate it to 75 degrees. Guess what? That's exactly how your life works. Once you accept this truth, it is a fact that is not the external things that are happening, it's the internal thermostat. Too often in life, people don't work on changing their identity. They're always working on producing external results. Have you ever known somebody who was wealthy and no longer is? Have you ever known somebody who made a bunch of money and no longer does? How about somebody who was in a great relationship and that relationship no longer exists? How about someone who got in great shape that is no longer in that shape again? If your results begin to exceed your internal thermostat, you will find a way to cool your life back down to what you believe you're worth and you're comfortable at your identity. You'll think it's coincidental. Oh, this accident happened, or this appointment canceled, or this circumstance took place. It's not coincidence. All of those things have happened because you set the thermostat of your life and you've regulated what you're going to get. Isn't that incredible? That you can learn all the talents, the behaviors, the skills, the tactics, all the strategies that I teach you. But if you don't alter that thermostat internally, you could have all of the skills of a 100-degree producer, and you will live a 75-degree existence because you will turn the air conditioner of your life on back down to cool it where you're comfortable. It's also true, by the way, you've seen this in your own life. Maybe you've had something really good going in business before. You've got momentum. It seems like things are happening great. And then you wake up 4, 5, 6 months later and you've cooled your life, your business right back down to where it was before. Maybe you'd saved some money at one time and then coincidentally your car broke down or a bill happened or there was a run of birthday parties and all of a sudden that bank account's back to where it always was. It's not coincidental. You've cooled the conditions back down again. And so you've seen this happen. Maybe you got in great shape at one point, but your identity wasn't that fit a person, and you've cooled it back down to about what you're comfortable being. This is true in your faith and your relationships. By the way, you have multiple thermostat settings. You have one in your faith, you have one in your fitness, one in your money, one in your happiness, right? One in your business life. So there's multiple identities we have. The reverse is also true. There's been times in your life where the circumstances, the conditions were terrible. You thought you'd never get out of it. You're never going to eat again. Well, guess what? You ate again, didn't you? And you heated your life back up to that same place again. So you've proven this over and over in your life, haven't you? So have I, so has every single human being. The governor on our life, the regulator of our life is our identity, which is the internal thermostat that sets the temperature for our life. So the key in life is to learn all the thoughts, the skills, the tactics, and the strategies that can heat our life up in the areas that matter most to us. But if we don't simultaneously change the conditions of our thermostat, change what we're comfortable living at, change our identity, our worth, change the thoughts, beliefs, concepts, and value we hold to ourselves, we will cool or heat our life back to that regulated temperature. And so I'm telling you, the overall key to changing the external conditions of your life is changing that internal thermostat setting. So that's what we're going to talk about, some strategies on today. Just being aware that you need to alter the thermostat. is a life-changing, liberating condition. I cover this in very specific detail and hashtag Max Out Your Life, my book. It's a quick read, 100 pages. I wrote it so that every page has strategies on it, no fluff. If you want the book, go to maxoutbook.com. If you put in the code MAXOUT, I'll buy the book for you. So I cover this in detail there, but I want to cover it in detail right now with you as well. What you need to be doing is becoming aware of how important it is that you adjust this thermostat setting as you produce better results, as you start to learn new skills and strategies and tactics. See, you can move from an average business into an extraordinary business with incredible opportunity, but you will produce the same results you're getting in the average business if you don't change that thermostat setting up to 95 or 100 or 120 degrees of what you believe you're worth, the thoughts, concepts, and beliefs you hold true to be about yourself. So it is the regulator on our lives, and it's the main thing I work on with my private coaching, with some of the elite performers I work with in business and athletics, in entertainment and politics, is me working with them on changing that internal thermostat where we can heat it higher and higher and higher so that they can produce the results and the conditions of their life, stay and exceed those levels all the time. In fact, in my own life, I'm always working on my self-confidence. I'm working on my tactics and strategies, my ability to influence, right? My thoughts, all of those different things. But the thing I'm most obsessed about that I know is going to get me to the ultimate version of me is constantly elevating the temperature in the areas that matter to me, adjusting that thermostat setting higher and higher and higher and higher so that I can get those conditions to match it, because it always will. You will always get your thermostat setting, always in your life. So can I give you any insights as to how to change that thermostat setting? I can. Let me give you a couple. The most powerful way and the easiest way to change your thermostat setting is by adding people to your circle, very close proximity, that live at a higher temperature in that area than you do. For example, in your faith, let's just say you're a 75-degreer in your faith. You've already seen this. You can't possibly begin to regularly associate with good, godly people who pray regularly, who try to live righteously, and they're at 110, 120 degrees of faith in their life, and not have that proximity heat you up. Now, you won't get to where they are. You'll get to somewhere between where you are at 75 degrees and they are at 110. Over time, you become 100-degreer. And you alter the thermostat setting through association. Same in business. If you and I were to hang around each other every single day, and let's say you were a 75-degreer in business, hypothetically, and I don't know that about you, but let's just say you were, and I was 150-degreer, and we hung around each other all the time. Don't you think through that association, especially if you had 2 or 3 or 4 people like me in your life, that just over time, you don't even feel it. You're at 80, you're at 85, you're at 90, you're at 95, and that's where you are. We understand the power of this with our children, because we know at school, the teachers have influence over them, they're mentors, but the people that really have influence over our children are their friends, because they're around them all the time. And so we know it sets their temperature. This is true in fitness. If you're a 75-degree of fitness, and every meal, every day at the gym, all your associations, hypothetically speaking, were with someone who was shredded and fit the way you wanted to look at 150 degrees, you know over time you get heated up. And so you can't be with someone every day. You can't be with them all the time. But the key is to get more proximity in the areas that matter with people whose thermostat setting is higher than yours. I am a product. You are listening to me right now because I've been so obsessed with this concept of adding new associations to my life that live in the areas that I want to improve in at higher temperatures than me. It's my obsession to this day. I'll give you a secret. One of the reasons I even do my show is I know that I'm influencing many of these guests in the areas that matter most to them through our proximity. And in some cases, they do it for me. And so I'm obsessed with the power of association, but I don't just associate. See, all personnel says, yeah, you're the 5 people you hang around. Kinda. You really are the 5 to 10 people you hang around if you're conscious all the time of studying them, of observing them, of asking questions, of the fact that you should be altering your thermostat setting. That's when it really moves. It's not just hanging around. It's consciously and intentionally spending time with people where you allow it to impact you, where you study them, where you really observe them, where you're open to their influence. There has to be a level of trust before you can do that, where you surrender yourself to them. But it's not just being around them. It's intentionally being around people that alters that thermostat setting. So power of association is the main way to do it. Second way to alter your identity is in a short window of time, behave completely differently. in a 30-day window of time in your fitness life, you shock your system into eating or training completely differently than you used to. Or in your business life, you make 100 times more phone calls, 100 more contacts. You do something in a very short window of time that shocks you into believing, my gosh, I could never go back where I was before. You trick your brain into believing you're different. There's this part of our brain that always wants to be consistent with what we're worth. Well, if in a short window of time, I begin to behave completely differently, your brain begins to believe you deserve something differently. When you begin to do the things nobody else is willing to do, you begin to believe you deserve the results nobody else deserves to get. This is important also because it changes the water line. It's almost like a water line in the pool. If you raise it, it leaves a new mark. Have you ever seen that before in a lake or a pool? Where you raise the water line in a short window of time and it just changes the mark in your life. It changes the thermostat setting. So you can alter things in your life in short bursts. And I do this often in an area where I really need to change. Like right now, I just started back on a really seriously, deeply committed fitness journey. I want to get back and past where I've ever been in fitness in my life. So I'm going to add some of these new associations. I'm going to train with a new group of people because I've been training alone. I'm going back to training with some people that are fitter than me, men and women that are fitter than me. That's my first combination. That'll alter my thermostat setting, our proximity. And secondly, I'm going psycho the next 30 days. I'm going psycho. I'm altering my nutrition and my diet dramatically, my workouts dramatically, and I'm going to shock my system in the next 30 days into changing the water line, changing that temperature setting. That's the second way you alter identity, alter the thermostat setting so that you alter the external results. I've said this to you before as well. See, beliefs are so important to guard. Because once you have a belief, your brain goes to work. And I've said this in another audio video where your brain has to go to work to prove your beliefs to be true. Your brain literally goes to work on finding the evidence to prove you right. And so that identity, you're constantly reinforcing it. Let me give you an example of what I mean. If you believe a certain worth about yourself, a certain identity, that impacts the type of action you're willing to take. So if there's a goal you've got set, it doesn't matter what it is, pick a goal. To the extent that you believe it's consistent with your identity is to the extent that you will make an effort towards it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, however, because what happens is if your identity is here and the goal is there, you will only make an effort congruent with what you believe you're worth. And so that limited effort you make produces the result not consistent, and it reinforces the belief. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you set a goal that is inconsistent with an identity you're working on. You will only make an effort consistent with the identity, which will get you to here, doesn't produce the result, and it reinforces this belief you have about yourself. So it's important as you set new goals, as you set new visions, that you also upgrade your identity simultaneously. You're in process of upgrading it because that identity impacts the effort you make, right? Impacts the will you put towards it. And that will is reinforced by the lack of result. And so it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. So your mind has this belief it wants to prove to be true, and it starts to find references. So if you believe you're 75 degrees, it's going to start finding legs to put under that table to make it immobile so it can't move to prove you right. And so our identity equals our effort. And the challenge is that effort produces the result. And so this identity has everything to do with the effort you make, which produces the result, which will reinforce the identity or the lack thereof. So it's critical that you upgrade identity with your new visions and goals. The next layer of this is you need to stop what's no longer needed. In other words, there were behaviors and thoughts you've had in the past that were needed to produce the results you currently have. But you need to stop what's no longer needed. Maybe you're continuing a behavior in your life that's no longer needed. Maybe you're continuing a thought or a worry that at one time was needed, but no longer is. Maybe there's a stress or an anxiety or a belief you're holding true to be about yourself that maybe you needed at some point in your life that you no longer need. It could be something to protect yourself from fear, to protect yourself from harm, or to serve you in getting through a certain circumstance. But if we're not conscious of dropping a thought or a behavior that's no longer needed, we take old thoughts, old behaviors that served an old version of ourselves into trying to become the new version of ourselves. So ask yourself that question. What do I need to drop that's no longer needed? Is it a person? Is it a thought? Is it a behavior, or is it an emotion? One of those things you probably are carrying with you from the past that maybe you needed to get through a circumstance. Maybe you needed to get through a relationship, through a setback, through a failure, or just to produce the results you currently get. But that thought, that behavior, that emotion, that person is no longer needed for you to go to the next level of your identity, the next level of your performance, the next level of yourself. And then finally is this. If you're stuck in a story. That's where you're stuck. There's a story you're telling yourself that doesn't serve you anymore. And you have to evaluate what that story is. I'm serious. Right now, if you say, Ed, I'm kind of stuck where I am. But what you need to do is you need to alter your associations. You need to do something in a short window of time. No question about it. You definitely need to evaluate what is no longer needed and evaluate the story you're telling yourself. There's all kinds of stories we tell ourselves that don't serve us anymore. This is critical. Maybe it's a story about your past, a story about your parents, a story about a previous relationship, a story about a success you used to have. You keep talking about that doesn't serve you to get to the next level. If I can be real with you, whatever you've achieved up to this point, that story you keep talking about, every second you spend in that old story about what you've achieved, your degree, some business you had, one thing you were real successful at in the past, every time you live in that story, you're stripping time and focus from the new story. What's the new story you're telling yourself? You can't have a new identity without a new story. What's the old story you keep repeating? Maybe it's not a success. Maybe it's a failure that you've had. It was a business setback. It was the market turn. It was the economy. It was someone who did you wrong, a relationship that let you down, a business partner who wasn't consistent, a failure you've had, a poor decision you made, a mistake you made in your life. And you're repeating this story to yourself, simultaneously trying to create a new identity. You can't take that old story into the new identity. One of the things we have to do to create a new identity is to begin to tell a new story. What's your new story? Who are you now? What are you all about now? Where are you going now? What's this new version of you? See, here's what's amazing. At any point in your life, you can just decide to write a new script. You could decide to become a whole new character. See, the leading character in the story of your life is you. And guess what? You and God control the script. You could write a new script at any time you want. Listen to me. At any time you want, you can simply decide to be a new character. I'm strong now. I'm beautiful now. I'm handsome now. I'm bold now. I'm funny now. I'm smart now. I'm going there now. Stop telling the old story. Here's the truth. Nobody cares. No one cares if you had a failure. No one cares if you've had a setback. No one cares if you had a victory. And none of those failures, none of those setbacks, none of those victories, and that old character you keep playing is the very thing that will prevent you from becoming this new version of you. It's a story if you're stuck. It's an old story you're telling with an old character that was last year's version, last decade's version. Who's the new character? What's the new script? What's the new story? I must tell you, I have a lot of weaknesses, a lot of things I do that don't serve me. But this identity thing, I get this. It's the key. Now, there's a lot of little mini things in life that matter. There's never one thing. If you said, what's the key? I can tell you, it's my addiction and my obsession to working on my identity. It's the thought of mine that dominates most of my thinking. That's number one. So I'm conscious of the concept. That's huge. Just being aware of the concept will put you light years ahead of 99.9% of it. Just awareness of the power of identity. Just now you knowing about the thermostat puts you in the 0.1% of all the people on the spinning earth right now. And then the next thing I'm really focused on is always adding people to my life in the areas that matter to me that live at higher temperatures than me. The second thing is I'm constantly doing things in short bursts of time to change the water line. I'm also super obsessed with dropping what's no longer needed. There were certain things I needed to think and do and say, or people I needed to be around, emotions I needed to have that got me to the place I'm currently at. I'm evaluating all the time. What is no longer needed? What emotion, what anxiety, what thought, what belief, what person, what behavior is no longer needed in my life? And then lastly, I never tell the old story. I don't like telling the old story. I'm constantly trying to write the new script, become the new character in my life. And it could just be the new emotions. It could be the new beliefs I have. It could be the new story, the new place I'm moving. But I'm constantly retelling a new story all the time. I'm constantly obsessed with writing the next chapter of my life, not reading the previous ones. The happiest and most fulfilled people don't read the past chapters of their life, whether they're good or bad, they are writing new ones all the time. These are the keys of changing the internal thermostat of our lives, and ultimately are the keys of changing the external circumstances of our lives. I know today helped you. And so all I ask from you is that you share this. I want more of the people in the world that need to hear this message to hear it. All of my information is free. I teach specific tactical strategies that I hope are inspirational. And based on the growth of the show, the world is finding out about it. It's the #1 downloaded audio in the world when you combine video and audio downloads. And so I just ask you to share this with people. If you're subscribed and you're listening to the audio version right now on iTunes or Spotify, make sure you go over to YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get the video version, because I'm going to put content on each platform that's different going forward. If you're watching this on YouTube, go subscribe to one of the audio platforms and share it with somebody. Every day on Instagram, we run the Max Out 2-minute drill in an effort to engage closer with you. I read all your comments. I reply to most of them. First off, make sure you're following me on Instagram, turn your notifications on, because in the first 2 minutes, if you make a comment on my main post with #MaxOut in the first 2 minutes, we take all the people that do that every single day. We pick a winner. Some of them written autographed copies of my book, a coaching call with me, coaching call with some of the guests on my show, Max Out gear, anything we can do to connect with you deeper, we do. We pick a winner every single day that comment in the first 2 minutes. And if you miss the first 2 minutes, because for whatever reason, life happens, as long as you make a comment on every post I make in a week, I usually make 4, 5, 6 posts. As long as you just comment every day at any time, at the end of the week, we add up people, all the people who commented every day, we pick a winner from there as well that I can get engaged with. So I want to challenge you to engage with me on social media more deeply as well. I hope the program is helping you, and I'm just here to help you max out your life and become the best version of yourself, become happier, more fulfilled, and more productive. God bless you. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around.
All right, what'd you think?
Liked it.
Leilani, you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Were you able to listen to that? I don't know how great the audio was coming through.
Yeah, I was able to hear everything.
What'd you think?
I liked it all. I liked how they talked about it's important to know your identity, and you know how he compared like the thermostat, how like whatever, like you can control like the temperature inside, but you can't control the temperature outside. I liked how he compared that to almost everything in our lives and how we react to things.
Right. Awesome. I love it. I'm looking for my notes, so I apologize. Bear with me. What happened to my note? I don't know. I got a note somewhere. Let me look. But what's your takeaways?
I really liked.
Thanks for texting those to me, Leilani.
I really liked when you talked about like thinking about what's no longer needed in your life. So whether that's an emotion, behavior, a person even, that could be bringing you down. I feel like it's kind of necessary to just like identify the issues of what can be causing how you're acting and just try to exterminate those.
Yep. Love it. What about you?
My favorite is everything about like writing a new story. Like I tend to like think about things I've done in the past, and like I guess sometimes I can get in the way of doing new things.
Yep.
And so finding out what you're telling yourself, what you've done in the past, and how you can change it.
Yeah. Awesome. How old are you?
I'm 24.
24. How old are you?
I'm
19. Leilani, how old are you? You're 23, right?
I'm actually 25.
25. Awesome. I didn't know you're older than me. With that being said, though, how important do you think it is that we learn this at this age?
Really important.
Especially you, man. Like I'm telling you, like you get this stuff planted in your brain right now, and your brain is still moldable before you really like. Because you talk to older people, they're like 40, they're stuck in their ways a lot of the time. It's very difficult for them to consider an alternative to their day-to-day behavior. They think they're stuck in their ways. But with us, we're still so moldable that just like he said, just having consciousness of the concept, literally just being aware that you're in control. Like you literally could convince yourself tomorrow that you are a millionaire. I identify with that, or I am the best snowboarder in the world, or whatever you want to do. And you could literally make it happen just because of the power of your mind. There are certain limitations, like I'm not going to be 7 foot, unfortunately, but outside of that, like the way I show up in the world, my belief system are all dictated by that. So I wrote notes back in July on this, but just generally there's a kind of a formula wrote down. So it's like identity, effort, result, repeat. So that's something that stuck out to me, is that it is a practice. It is something that you consciously work through over and over again in different areas of your life. And I'll be vulnerable with you. There's many times in my personal life, especially recently, where this principle is played out, where like an example, he talks about short bursts, right? Back in April, I went ham between like February and May, and I sold 10 houses in 30 days. And then now I'm like, I'll probably sell 2 this month. What's the difference? Clearly I have the capacity to do that. Could I do it every month? No, because I don't associate with that level of results. But guess what? There's an agent up at South Valley that sold like 175 houses as a solo agent last year with 2 assistants. What's the difference between you and him, or me and him, right? Totally here. Maybe there are other areas of his life where his identity is shitty. He has a bad relationship. Maybe he's, like he's got other areas where he might, not to disparage him, he seems like a great dude. I'm making a point, like normally when someone succeeds like excessively in one area, usually the other areas are weak, but like how can you maintain that level of like effort or result in all areas of life and be conscious of how you're showing up? But that's even financially, I've made a good amount of money the last couple of years, but I do find myself stooping back down to a certain level of savings or money in the bank or whatever, because life comes up, or then next day I blow money on stupid things, so it's totally identity based thing. But yeah, I love it. Thanks for joining us. So current mission, outside of thinking about that this week, maybe weekend, write down a couple of things in your personal life that you can really change or help you, maybe just in this career path. Maybe it has nothing to do with any other area of your life. Maybe just identify a couple of beliefs you're holding about yourself, or beliefs you could instill in yourself that would make a difference. Like, are you going to be the top rookie producer in KW this next year? You totally could. Current mission. So since you guys are new, every week we're going to talk about what your, kind of requirements are, or what you should be working on, let's say. So database, getting to a minimum of 200 contacts as soon as possible. So that's uploaded into Command. Lead generate every single day. That's your one thing. If there's nothing else you do that. Make sure you make your 10 contacts every single day. GPS and 411, that's our goal setting sheet. I made a video and put it on Slack on how to do that, or at least an overview. Take a crack at it. Again, just identify what your yearly goal is. What do you want to do in the next? So Leilani wants to sell 10 by the spring. How many do you want to do? Like what would you say your goal is in the next little while? Real estate related?
Like short term,
Let's say over the next 12 months.
24.
24. Perfect. How about you?
Maybe 12.
12.
100.
Okay. So that's where you take that and say, I want to help 24 families or 12 families or 10 families in this period of time, right? And then on the GPS, there's 3 categories. You're going to break down your priorities. So what are the 3 main things you're going to focus on to make that happen? And what are strategies to make sure those priorities actually happen? So I'm going to sell 24 houses. I have my first priority is that I'm going to stay in touch with people I know. Second priority is I'm going to connect with people I don't. Third priority is I'm going to commit to personal development to reinforce the top 2 skill sets. And you're going to write down 5 strategies. What could you do? Well, I'm going to do an open house once or twice a month. I'm going to knock 50 doors a week. I'm going to do these different things. That's your commitment to yourself, that if I do these things, I will hit that goal of 24, no problem. Does that make sense? Because truthfully, there's really no reason you couldn't, I know mentally that may be hard to wrap your mind around, but it's a pretty simple process. Like if you wanted to go sell 10 houses in a month, you could. There's a formula for it. It's just a matter of your effort and maximizing your time. And then lastly, graduate to group coaching. So how you get into group coaching is you basically finish your education requirements. So that's ProU videos, Ignite, Launch, and then your case studies. Once those are done, then you can join us for group coaching once a week, which is the other thing, training or class. It's really coaching. And that's where every week we break down your plan for that week. So on Monday, we sit down in the morning and we say, okay, what are you doing this week to get a deal? Like what's your business looking like this week? And then I have hard conversations with you. I help poke you and hold you accountable and make sure you're living up to your potential. And we set a specific 3-step action plan every single week. So every week, when you show up, you're leaving with a plan to execute on, reporting back the next week. And then we get specific coaching and training based on how it went. So if you said, I'm going to set 2 listing appointments this week, and by Monday next week you haven't, we're going to talk about why. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't get the listings. We're going to talk specifically about what you could have done to get those. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the coaching that's going to help you get out of the program, because that's where we get very specific with our actions, and I help you take everything you've learned and break it down into bite-sized chunks every week. Fair?
Yep.
So that's the current mission. Get all the education stuff done ASAP. The 30, 60, 90 gives you like 30 to 60 days to do it. Try to bust it out like 2 or 3 weeks, like quicker the better. Because ultimately the less time you're spending on that, the more time you get with me. And that means that you get obviously a lot more out of this experience. So otherwise, anything specifically? I always ask how it's going. That's the last little step here before we wrap this up. Obviously, you guys are new, but are you planning on making lead generation a daily habit?
Yes.
Awesome. Obviously, again, you're new and I know you've been in the business a little bit, but what lacking knowledge or information do you feel like you're having right now? Like if there's maybe one or two things you'd like to learn or you feel like you don't understand?
So I just say communicating is probably like the biggest, like was my biggest struggle and something I need to work on.
Mhm.
It's just like being able to communicate with my clients. Whether that's like just knowing what to say
Mhm.
or just like being able to provide them with the right info.
Perfect. So come to the group lead generation next week. We'll go over script practice for phone calls, which he's seen. Felt like it was helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leilani came as well. And we'll go over at least scripts on phone calls, which in turn is going to help you just be a better communicator because I'll teach you the secret of small talk, basically. And then as far as general communication is concerned, we could take it case by case, or if you have specific scenarios you'd like to role play on or walk through and like what I would say, just to help you have the words, then I'm happy to do so. Anything else?
I'd just say that. That's probably mine.
How about you, Joel?
Kind of the same, like I feel like I do okay when I'm in the middle of a conversation, but the hardest part for me is just like,
Initiating.
yeah, like opening my mouth and like starting.
Perfect. Leilani, how about you?
With talking to people, is that what?
No, just like any lacking knowledge or information you feel like you need or wants and needs for resources, training or support.
I think I'm doing okay with that. I feel like I'm just slowly getting by on the case studies. I'm on the last one right now. And so a quick question I have, so is she officially not part
Yeah,
of like the,
we're gonna introduce Michelle as the new Jen, basically. So
Okay.
you could go up and talk to Michelle. She offices upstairs, like you walk up the stairs and take a left. She's the first office right there on the corner. So you could always, I don't know if they've trained her yet or anything like that. But Jen, you could always text Jen and just see if she'll pass you off. I think she'd be happy to. Jen is the one that wrote the case studies. I don't think really at any point I'll be the one passing people off just because that would be a substantial amount of time. But Jen or Michelle should be able to help you out with that. And I think we should be introducing Michelle as like what Jen's doing shortly. We're just working out the specifics on her hours and like what she's actually going to be doing for the team.
okay, perfect. Cause my goal is to hurry and get case study 5 done so that I can come to group coaching next week. So I'm just wondering, I'm hoping, I guess I'll just like message Jen to see if she can like help me with this last little bit, but.
That'd be awesome. Yep. And look forward to seeing you group coaching. That'll be awesome. That's really quick. Thanks for getting that stuff done. To go back to your question or just generally conversating, right? What's the best way to get better at talking to people?
To just talk to people.
Or practice, right, with each
Yeah.
other. So I'd recommend if that's something you feel like you want to work on, partner up. Even Leilani and Joel talked about that. At our weekly group lead generation and script practice or on your own separate time, work together. Like you guys are going to feel you're in the same boat, right? And so you may as well help each other. And it's also going to be great to have someone that you can consistently script practice with, just so you can get through those awkward conversations or get feedback. And you're also going to see each other improving, which is going to in turn help you both grow, or you and Leilani or whoever decides to partner up. And there's a few other new agents too. They're joining. We should have like 8 by the end of the week that are now onboarded or at least like in process. So I would say in the next 2 weeks, you'll see a lot more people in the room. And, we got 40 people, like I think we're up to now like 49 students, but there's probably going to be 8 of you that actually show up. So just use those people and work together to create that kind of team culture with each other, and you guys would be good. And obviously I'm here to help. I just make a point, like it'd be good to script practice together since you're in the same spot. That's all I got, guys. Leilani, thanks for jumping on. Ritz, I appreciate you, my man. If there's anything you guys need, let me know. And if not, I will catch you later.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.